Pope Francis's recent visit to Rabbia prison, where he opened the Second Jubilee Holy Door, marked a significant and symbolic act of his papacy. This visit, his third to a prison since becoming pontiff, underscores his commitment to inclusivity, humility, and outreach to the marginalized, hallmarks of his leadership. The Vatican, often seen as a bastion of tradition, stability, and deeply rooted beliefs unchanging for centuries, now finds itself at the heart of unprecedented change. Pope Francis, a leader defined by his humility and willingness to confront entrenched norms, has embarked on a path that challenges convention and resonates far beyond the walls of the Holy See. His recent decisions, far from being minor reforms or adjustments to doctrine, represent bold actions that theologians, world leaders, and everyday believers are still grappling to fully understand. These choices hold the potential not only to redefine the Catholic faith, but also to reshape the future of one of the world's oldest and most influential institutions. At this transformative moment, the Church, with its 1.3 billion followers, stands at a crossroads under Francis's visionary leadership. From his first appearance on the balcony of St. Peter's Basilica in 2013, his intention to focus on people over pomp was clear. Rejecting the trappings of grandeur, Francis chose to live in a modest guesthouse rather than the opulent apostolic palace, a decision that was not merely symbolic but also indicative of the values he sought to emphasize in his papacy. Rooted in simplicity and service, his leadership has continually prioritized outreach to those on the peripheries, challenging the Church to evolve while staying faithful to its core mission. Inclusivity has been a cornerstone of Pope Francis's papacy. He has consistently reached out to individuals and communities who have historically felt excluded or alienated by the Church. From his empathetic stance toward LGBTQ+ individuals, encapsulated in his remark, "Who am I to judge?" to his hands-on advocacy for migrants and refugees, Francis has sought to demonstrate compassion through action. His visits to refugee camps and his promotion of interfaith dialogue are not merely gestures of goodwill, but also declarations of the Church's evolving role in a fragmented world. By addressing those who feel left behind, he has attempted to bridge divides and bring a sense of belonging to a Church that many see as distant and out of touch. However, Pope Francis's mission extends beyond the boundaries of the Catholic faith. His groundbreaking encyclical Laudato Si', which frames climate change as a moral and spiritual issue, calls on the global community to care for our common home. By placing environmental stewardship at the heart of Catholic teaching, he has positioned the Church as a moral leader in addressing one of the greatest existential threats to humanity. Similarly, his critiques of economic systems that prioritize profit over people have sparked vigorous debates, both within and outside the Church. Francis's vocal condemnation of unfettered capitalism and his advocacy for the marginalized challenge global structures of inequality, drawing admiration from progressives while eliciting pushback from traditionalists. This bold and forward-thinking approach, while praised by many, has not been without controversy. Conservative factions within the Church express concerns that Francis's reforms risk moving too far from traditional teachings. This tension between maintaining deeply rooted traditions and embracing necessary reforms is a defining characteristic of his papacy. Critics often argue that efforts to relax restrictions, such as allowing divorced and remarried Catholics to receive communion, signify compromise rather than clarity. Yet, Francis remains undeterred, determined to lead a Church that resonates in today's world while staying true to its foundational mission. The challenges facing the Catholic Church in the 21st century are immense. Declining church attendance, particularly in Europe and North America, reflects a growing disconnect between institutional religion and modern values. Younger generations, shaped by a digital age and evolving cultural norms, often view the Church as outdated or irrelevant, questioning its stances on issues like women's roles, LGBTQ+ rights, and handling of sexual abuse scandals. These challenges are not merely about attendance figures. They strike at the heart of the Church's survival and relevance in regions where its influence was once unshakable. In the face of these obstacles, Pope Francis has embraced adaptability. His vision of a synodal Church, one that walks together and emphasizes collective decision-making, represents a departure from a hierarchical structure that has long defined Catholicism. This shift, though subtle, has profound implications for leadership within the Church, fostering a sense of shared purpose among clergy and laity. Critics, however, warn that this approach could dilute the Church's core teachings and introduce a level of compromise that weakens its moral authority. As Francis approaches the 11th year of his transformative papacy, his legacy is already monumental, yet his vision for the Church remains a work in progress. He aims to create a Church that not only upholds centuries-old traditions, but also engages meaningfully with a fractured and rapidly evolving world. From embracing modern communication tools to addressing pressing issues like climate change and social justice, Francis envisions a Church that stands with the oppressed, listens to the voiceless, and serves as a moral compass in an era of division. The future of the Catholic Church under Francis's leadership raises profound questions. Can it navigate the balance between tradition and reform, maintaining its core identity while addressing the demands of a modern world? Will it find unity within its diverse and often conflicting factions? These questions do not merely concern the Church's future, but resonate with the broader dynamics of faith, leadership, and global change. Pope Francis's vision is ultimately one of hope. He believes in a Church that embodies Christ's teachings through actions as much as doctrine. His call for a synodal Church, where all voices are heard and respected, reflects his commitment to inclusivity and humility. Whether this vision will succeed in revitalizing the Catholic Church and redefining its role in the world remains to be seen. But as history unfolds, it is clear that Pope Francis is charting a course that could shape not only the Church's trajectory, but also the course of global history itself. Pope Francis's papacy has been defined by his bold leadership, consistent advocacy for the marginalized, and his unwavering call to action on global challenges. His focus on inclusivity, compassion, and environmental responsibility has fundamentally shifted perceptions of the Catholic Church. With his transformative vision, Francis has urged Catholics to extend their faith beyond personal devotion, emphasizing collective responsibility toward humanity and the planet. As the Church prepares for the next chapter of its history, Pope Francis's legacy looms large, having paved the way for a Church that is not only deeply rooted in tradition but also open to change and renewal. However, with his papacy nearing its conclusion, critical questions arise about the qualities that the next pope must embody to lead the Church into an uncertain and rapidly changing world. The Church at a crossroads. The Catholic Church faces a unique moment in its history. It remains a pillar of spiritual guidance for 1.3 billion faithful, yet it also confronts unprecedented challenges. Declining attendance in historically strong regions such as Europe and North America, evolving social attitudes that question its stances on morality and tradition, and a rapidly shifting geopolitical landscape. In many ways, the Church finds itself at a crossroads. The qualities of its next leader will determine whether it can bridge the divides within its global congregation and reclaim relevance in an increasingly secular world. At the heart of this challenge lies the question of unity. The Church spans continents, languages, and cultures, and its members often hold divergent, sometimes conflicting, views on matters such as reform, morality, and adherence to tradition. The next pope must be an individual capable of fostering dialogue, bridging gaps, and maintaining harmony within this vast and diverse institution. Additionally, the world itself is marked by divisions, religious, political, and ideological. The Church's leader will need to be a diplomat and a unifier, continuing the critical interfaith dialogues championed by Pope Francis. Imagine a future where the Church plays a pivotal role in fostering peace between Christianity and Islam in conflict-ridden areas such as the Middle East, or addressing global divisions stemming from economic inequality or climate change. However, unity cannot mean uniformity. Diversity within the Church is one of its greatest strengths. The next pope must celebrate and elevate this diversity, ensuring that Catholics from all parts of the world feel represented and valued. With over 40% of Catholics living in Latin America, vibrant growth in Africa, and steadfast faith in regions of Asia, the Church's global composition should be reflected in its leadership and priorities. The future pope must focus on weaving these distinct threads into a cohesive and inclusive vision. Humility, a hallmark of leadership. Pope Francis has redefined what it means to lead the Church through humility and service. His decision to live in the modest Domus Sancti Marthae guesthouse instead of the apostolic palace and his symbolic gestures, such as washing the feet of prisoners and embracing marginalized communities, have reshaped the role of the Pope as a servant leader. The next Pope must not only carry this mantle forward but also expand upon it. This includes advocating for the poor, displaced, and marginalized, not from a distance, but through genuine connection and understanding. The leadership style of the next Pope should not center on authority from above but rather on walking alongside the faithful. This pastoral care, offering guidance and solace for Catholics worldwide, is increasingly essential. A Pope who listens as much as he leads will be better equipped to address the concerns of a global flock, fostering a sense of connection that transcends geographic and cultural boundaries. The shift toward the Global South. The growth of Catholicism is now most vibrant in the Global South, with burgeoning populations in Africa, Latin America, and parts of Asia. These regions not only represent the future of the Church but also face unique and pressing challenges, including poverty, environmental crises, migration, and social inequality. The next Pope must ensure that these regions are prioritized in the Church's global mission. Electing a Pope from the Global South would symbolize a shift in the Church's power dynamics, acknowledging that Catholicism is no longer a predominantly European institution but a truly global faith. Figures such as Cardinal Luis Antonio Tagle from the Philippines and Cardinal Peter Turkson from Ghana exemplify this potential, with leadership styles deeply rooted in the realities and aspirations of these regions. Highlighting the concerns and voices of these areas, whether through concrete action or symbolic leadership, will signal a transformation in how the Church sees its role in the modern world. The traits of the next leader. The qualities required for the next Pope extend beyond theological acumen. The Church's next leader must possess political and diplomatic savvy, navigating both internal Church governance and the intricacies of international relations. For instance, Cardinal Pietro Parolin, often described as the Vatican's prime minister, has set a high standard with his adept handling of sensitive issues, such as the Vatican-China Agreement on bishop appointments. While controversial, his work underscores the delicate balance needed to achieve unity and forward progress without compromising the Church's core values. The next Pope must also confront pressing global challenges, continuing Pope Francis's initiatives to address climate change, income inequality, and social justice. These are not merely political concerns but deeply moral issues that require the Church's active engagement. The leader must expand upon the precedent set by encyclicals like Laudato Si', positioning faith as central to solving humanity's existential crises. A vision for the future. The road ahead for the Catholic Church is fraught with challenges. Declining attendance in some areas, scandals that have shaken trust in its leadership, and societal shifts away from organized religion pose existential threats. At the same time, opportunities abound for renewal and growth. The Church has the chance to reposition itself as a leader in addressing global issues while reconnecting with disenchanted followers through humility, service, and inclusivity. The Catholic Church has always walked a delicate line between preserving tradition and adapting to the modern world. The next Pope will be tasked with continuing this balance, ensuring that centuries-old teachings resonate with today's realities. This may include re-examining stances on contentious issues such as the role of women in the Church, LGBTQ+ inclusivity, and clerical celibacy, while ensuring that the Church's core doctrines remain steadfast. Ultimately, Pope Francis's successor must be a leader with the vision to embrace innovation, the humility to serve, and the wisdom to unify. Under their guidance, the Catholic Church will have the chance to rise above its challenges, become a more compassionate and inclusive institution, and reaffirm its relevance as a beacon of hope and faith in an ever-changing world. In many ways, the Church's future stands not only as a test of its resilience, but as an opportunity to shape history in profound and meaningful ways. In an increasingly polarized world, Cardinal Pietro Parolin's calm demeanor and emphasis on unity make him a reassuring presence during turbulent times. His supporters praise his diplomatic expertise, highlighting his ability to navigate complex international relationships and elevate the Vatican's role on the global stage. However, critics argue that his focus on diplomacy could overshadow the pastoral dimensions of the papacy, which require a personal touch to connect deeply with everyday Catholics. While his political acumen is unquestionable, some question whether it alone can inspire a flock yearning for spiritual connection. Still, Parolin's advocates believe that his profound understanding of the Church's global role positions him as a compelling choice to address the multifaceted challenges of today's interconnected world. Cardinal Luis Antonio Tagle, affectionately nicknamed Asia's Pope Francis, brings warmth and humility to his ministry. From his modest upbringing in the Philippines to his current role as head of Caritas Internationalis, the Church's global humanitarian arm, Tagle embodies a leadership style rooted in compassion and service. His palpable connection to the marginalized, shaped by his first-hand experience of poverty in his homeland, has made him a beloved figure across the Catholic world. As Archbishop of Manila, he did not merely preach service. He lived it, washing the feet of the poor and delivering aid during natural disasters. His ministry makes the gospel's message of love tangible. Additionally, Tagle's ability to engage with young people is another hallmark of his leadership. Through his relatability, humor, and use of modern technology, including social media, he bridges the gap with younger generations. However, critics question whether his compassionate approach might lack the administrative rigor necessary to govern the complex Vatican machinery. Despite this, Tagle's supporters argue that his visionary and inclusive style could bring renewal and hope to a church in need of both. Cardinal Peter Turkson of Ghana represents a historic possibility as a potential first pope from Africa. As one of the Church's leading advocates for social and environmental justice, Turkson's leadership is marked by moral clarity and a commitment to systemic change. His perspective from the global South, where Catholicism is experiencing vibrant growth, could profoundly influence the Church's focus and priorities. Turkson was instrumental in crafting Laudato Si', Pope Francis's landmark encyclical on environmental stewardship, which linked ecological responsibility to the Church's mission to serve the poor. His deep understanding of how climate change disproportionately affects vulnerable communities underscores his dedication to addressing justice through the lens of faith. Turkson's journey as Ghana's first cardinal highlights the Church's expanding reach, with Africa's youthful and vibrant Catholic population representing the future of the faith. Advocating for policies that prioritize dignity over profit, Turkson has consistently championed the voices of marginalized communities. While some view his contemplative and measured style as less charismatic than other contenders, his supporters believe that his alignment with Pope Francis's vision of inclusivity and justice makes him a natural successor. They argue that Turkson's emphasis on listening, collaboration, and ethical action could guide the Church into a new era of global relevance. As the Catholic Church faces an era of rapid change, the stakes for its next leader are enormous. Challenges such as declining church attendance, generational disconnect, and tensions between modernity and tradition demand a leader who can address them with grace and wisdom. Each of these cardinals, Parolin, Tagle, and Turkson, offers a unique path forward. Parolin's diplomacy could stabilize the Church in an increasingly fractured world. Tagle's compassion could inspire a new generation of Catholics to embrace their faith. Turkson's moral clarity could position the Church as a leader in global justice and environmental stewardship. The question remains, who among them can truly unite a global flock and lead the Church into its next chapter? Speculation swirls, but no clear answers emerge. What is certain, however, is that the next pope will inherit a church standing at a crossroads, tasked with guiding it toward a future that balances tradition and renewal in an ever-changing world. The Catholic Church stands at a crossroads, where decisions made today will ripple across decades to come. The race to succeed Pope Francis is about far more than who will don the white robes next. It's about the future of a church that must adapt to an ever-changing world. Will it be a church of diplomacy, as envisioned by Cardinal Parolin? A church of compassion and inclusion, as embodied by Cardinal Tagle? Or a church of justice and bold action, as championed by Cardinal Turkson? The answers may come sooner than expected, but one thing is certain. The future of Catholicism is poised for profound transformation. During a private gathering with senior Vatican officials, Pope Francis offered candid insights into the kind of leader the Church needs in these challenging times. While stopping short of an official endorsement, the Pope's remarks carried significant weight, particularly his praise for Cardinal Tagle. Describing Tegal as a leader who genuinely lives the gospel, Pope Francis highlighted his humility and pastoral approach. His ability to connect deeply with people, especially youth and marginalized communities, stood out prominently. These comments seem to align closely with the Pope's long-standing vision of a church that is inclusive, compassionate, and firmly rooted in serving those on the periphery. Tegal's rise is particularly significant against the backdrop of the growing importance of Asia in the global Catholic Church. As the first Asian cardinal to emerge as a strong contender for the papacy, Tegal represents a shift in the Church's center of influence. In Asia, where Catholicism is flourishing and vibrant communities with youthful populations are driving growth, Tegal's leadership could signal a new era of diversity and inclusion. Pope Francis acknowledged this shift, emphasizing Tegal's ability to bridge both global and regional audiences. Born in the Philippines, a nation where faith is deeply woven into the fabric of society, Tegal carries the stories and struggles of his people onto the global stage. His work as head of Caritas Internationalis, the Church's global humanitarian organization, has further solidified his reputation as a compassionate advocate for justice, migration, and poverty relief.